Ever feel like your QuickBooks Online is running you, instead of you running it? Like you're drowning in a sea of transactions, and every click is a gamble? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. But what if I told you there's a secret weapon hiding in plain sight, a tool that could automate your bookkeeping and reclaim your sanity? We're talking about rules in QuickBooks Online. But before we dive into the how, let's ask the real question. Why do we even need rules? Music fades slightly, and the montage transitions to a clean, organized workspace with a simplified QuickBooks Online interface on a screen. Think about it. Every business has patterns. Recurring expenses, consistent income sources, predictable vendor payments. Without rules, you're manually categorizing these transactions over and over again, wasting precious time. Time you could be spending growing your business, connecting with clients, or, just taking a breather. Imagine you get a monthly payment from web design company for $1,500 every single month. Do you really want to click, select income, then sales, and then web design income every time? That's where rules come in. They're like little digital assistants, watching your transactions and automatically applying your instructions. Now, let's build some context. QuickBooks Online is designed to streamline your financial management. It's built on the principle of categorizing transactions into specific accounts, creating a clear picture of your income and expenses. But with the sheer volume of data, automation is key. And that's where rules shine. They're not just about saving time. They're about accuracy. Consistent categorization means fewer errors and a more reliable financial overview. This is critical for reporting, budgeting, and making informed business decisions. Think of it as creating a set of instructions for your QuickBooks Online to follow. You program it once and it executes it repeatedly. So what exactly are these rules? In QuickBooks Online, a rule is essentially a set of criteria and actions. You define the criteria, like if the description contains office supplies, and then specify the actions, like then categorize it as office supplies expense. When a transaction matches your criteria, QuickBooks Online automatically applies the actions. It's like setting up a filter for your transactions, but with the power to automatically categorize them. Let's break down the anatomy of a rule. You'll typically find the Rules section in the Banking tab. When you create a new rule, you'll encounter a few key elements: the name, the apply to, the bank text, the transaction type, the category, and the vendor/customer. The name is simply a descriptive label for your rule. Apply to lets you specify which bank or credit card accounts the rule should apply to. Bank text is where you define the criteria, like keywords in the description or the amount of the transaction. Transaction type specifies whether it's an expense or income. Category is where you select the account for categorization. And vendor/customer allows you to assign the transaction to a specific vendor or customer. Now let's get practical. Let's create a rule for that recurring web design company payment. We'll start by going to the Banking tab and clicking on Rules. Then we'll click New Rule. We'll name it something descriptive, like Web Design Income. We'll set Apply to the relevant bank account. Under Bank Text, we'll choose Description and Contains and enter Web Design Company. We'll set Transaction Type to Income. We'll choose the Sales category and then, more specifically, the Web Design Income subcategory. We can also assign Web Design Company as the customer. Finally, we'll click Save. Now, every time a transaction with Web Design Company in the description appears in our bank feed, QuickBooks Online will automatically categorize it as Web Design Income. But rules aren't just for recurring income. They're equally powerful for managing expenses. Think about your monthly internet bill. You can create a rule that automatically categorizes all transactions from your internet provider as internet expense, or consider your regular office supply purchases. You can create a rule that categorizes all transactions from Office Depot as office supplies expense. You can even get more granular. For example, you could create a rule that categorizes transactions from Office Depot over $100 as large office supply purchase and transactions under $100 as regular office supplies. The power of rules lies in their flexibility. You can combine multiple criteria to create complex rules. For example, you can create a rule that categorizes transactions from fuel company as vehicle fuel, only if the amount is greater than $50. This allows you to differentiate between smaller fuel purchases and larger ones. You can also use or conditions. For instance, you could create a rule that categorizes transactions from Starbucks or coffee shop as meals and entertainment. Now, let's talk about some best practices. First, start with simple rules and gradually increase complexity as you become more comfortable. Don't try to automate everything at once. Second, be specific with your criteria. Vague criteria can lead to miscategorization. The more specific your criteria, the more accurate your rules will be. Third, regularly review your rules. As your business evolves, your rules may need to be updated. Fourth, use descriptive names for your rules. This will make it easier to manage and maintain them. Fifth, test your rules thoroughly. Before applying a rule to all transactions, test it on a few transactions to ensure it works as expected. And sixth, leverage the auto-add feature with caution. While it can save time, it can also lead to errors if your rules aren't perfectly accurate. It's generally best to review transactions before they're automatically added. Another really useful aspect is the ability to edit and manage rules. You can easily edit existing rules to update their criteria or actions. You can also delete rules that are no longer needed, and you can reorder your rules to prioritize them. QuickBooks Online applies rules in the order they're listed, so you can ensure that the most important rules are applied first. This is incredibly useful when you have rules that might overlap. Let's touch on some advanced use cases. You can create rules based on the bank account number, the transaction type, or even the memo field. This level of granularity allows you to automate even the most complex transactions. You can also use rules to flag transactions for review. For example, you can create a rule that flags all transactions over $1,000 for manual review. This can help you identify potential fraud or errors. You can also use rules to split transactions. If you have a transaction that needs to be split into multiple categories, you can create a rule that automatically splits it. For example, you could split a transaction from a restaurant into meals and entertainment, and office supplies if you purchased both during the same visit. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.